Every single day you probably use this invention at least once. Maybe on your shoes, your jacket, or your kid's backpack, that satisfying rip sound, it's everywhere. From the shoes on astronauts' feet in zero gravity to the artificial hearts keeping people alive. But what if I told you this multi-billion-dollar invention only exists because one man refused to get annoyed during a walk with his dog? But before we unravel this mystery, quick favor, if you're curious like me, hit that like button. It helps more people discover these hidden stories. Now, let's go back in time. Right now, as you're watching this, somewhere in the world, a Velcro fastener is being ripped open every single second. The global hook and loop fastener market is worth over $4 billion. NASA uses it. The military uses it. Hospitals rely on it. It's in cars, planes, and even on artificial organs inside human bodies. But here's what's strange. Unlike most modern inventions, Velcro wasn't created by a team of engineers in a laboratory. It wasn't funded by a tech giant or a government contract. It came from something much simpler, much more ordinary, a walk in the woods with a dog. But why did it take so long for anyone to notice what this man saw? Let's rewind further. 30 years ago, Velcro was becoming unavoidable. Children's shoes had replaced laces almost entirely. Why? Because kids couldn't tie their shoes yet, but they could press two surfaces together. The fashion industry initially hated it. They called it ugly, utilitarian, something only children and old people used. But then something shifted. In 1984, David Letterman appeared on television wearing Velcro shoes. He joked about them. The audience laughed. But millions of people saw those shoes. Suddenly, Velcro wasn't just practical, it was almost cool. By the 1990s, athletic companies were incorporating it into high-end sports equipment. The sound of Velcro being adjusted became the sound of competition, of preparation, but rewind even further, to the moment when Velcro was anything but cool, when it was barely even believed to be possible. What you're about to hear sounds like science fiction, but it's not. It's just one man who wouldn't give up. 70 years ago, a Swiss engineer named Georges de Mestral walked into textile manufacturer after textile manufacturer with the same pitch. I want to create a fastener made of two strips of fabric, one covered in thousands of tiny hooks, the other covered in thousands of tiny loops. They laughed at him, not politely, not gently, they actually laughed, because what he was describing sounded impossible. Who could create thousands of perfect microscopic hooks? How would they stay attached to fabric? How would it work reliably? But Georges de Mestral had something these manufacturers didn't have. He had seen it work, not in a factory, not in a laboratory, in nature. He'd spent nearly a decade studying burrs under a microscope. Those annoying little seed pods that stick to your clothes and your dog's fur after a walk. Most people cursed them, picked them off, threw them away annoyed. Georges de Mestral studied them obsessively. He discovered that each burr was covered in hundreds of tiny hooks, natural hooks that had evolved over millions of years to catch onto the loops in animal fur and human fabric. The plant didn't have seeds that could fly like dandelions, or seeds that animals would eat, so it evolved to hitchhike. And Georges thought, if nature can do this, why can't we? But here's where the story takes a turn. Getting manufacturers to believe in him was only the first problem. The second problem was bigger, much bigger. He couldn't make it work. For years, every prototype failed. The hooks broke, the loops tore. The whole thing fell apart after a few uses. He tried different materials, cotton, polyester, nylon. Nothing lasted. His colleagues told him to give up. His friends said he was wasting his time. He'd already spent a fortune, nearly a decade of his life. But then, one day in 1955, he was examining his latest failure under a microscope, and he realized something. The hooks weren't the problem, the material was. He needed something that could be shaped when hot but stay rigid when cool. Something that could be molded into thousands of perfect hooks and never lose its shape. He needed nylon, but not just any nylon. A specific weave, a specific heat treatment. It took 2 more years of trial and error, but finally, in 1957, he had it. But let's go back to where it really started, to the exact moment this entire industry was born. It's 1941. World War II is raging across Europe. Switzerland, neutral in the conflict, is an island of relative peace. Georges de Mestral is a 34-year-old electrical engineer. He's not thinking about inventions today. He's just taking his dog for a walk in the Jura Mountains. It's summer. The meadows are full of wildflowers and burrs. So many burrs. After the walk, Georges goes to brush off his pants. His dog's fur is covered too. Those annoying little seed pods are everywhere. Most people would have cursed, maybe sworn off that trail, but Georges de Mestral was a curious man. He'd been an inventor since childhood. At 12 years old, he designed a toy airplane that actually got patented. So instead of being annoyed, he got curious. Why did these burrs stick so well? He put one under his microscope that evening, and what he saw changed everything. Hundreds of tiny hooks, perfect little curves that grabbed onto anything loop-shaped. The fabric of his pants was full of loops. The dog's fur was full of loops, natural, simple, brilliant. And in that moment, he saw it. A fastener that didn't need buttons, didn't need zippers, didn't need ties, just hooks and loops. He sketched the idea that night. He called it Velcro, a combination of two French words, velours meaning velvet, and crochet meaning hook, velvet hook. But here's what nobody tells you about that walk. Georges de Mestral had taken that same path 100 times before. The burrs had stuck to him 100 times before. So why did he finally notice on that particular day? According to his personal notes, discovered years later, something different had happened on that walk. His dog had run ahead into a particularly thick patch of burrs. When Georges caught up, his dog was completely covered. Not just a few burrs, hundreds of them. The dog was almost panicking, trying to shake them off. It took Georges over an hour to remove them all, one by one, from the dog's ears. From between its toes, everywhere, and during that hour, something clicked in his mind. If something this annoying is also this effective at attaching, what else could it attach? That frustration. That tedious hour of picking burrs. That's what made him really see them. Sometimes the best inventions come not from sudden inspiration, but from being forced to pay attention to something we'd normally ignore. So let's connect it all. A walk in 1941 leads to a microscope examination. That examination leads to 16 years of failures and mockery. Those failures lead to a breakthrough in 1957. That breakthrough leads to a patent in 1958. The patent leads to NASA noticing it in 1960. NASA's use makes it credible. Credibility leads to adoption. Adoption leads to billions of fasteners. And all of it traces back to one man, one dog, and 1 hour of frustration in a Swiss meadow. Today, when you press those two strips together, you're using the same principle that burrs use for millions of years. Nature's design. Perfected by one curious engineer who refused to be annoyed, who refused to ignore what everyone else ignored. The next time you hear that satisfying rip sound, remember, you're hearing the echo of a walk that happened over 80 years ago. You're hearing one man's refusal to waste an hour of frustration, his decision to look closer instead of looking away, because that's how the best hidden chapters of history work. They don't start in laboratories or boardrooms. They start with curiosity, with paying attention, with seeing what everyone else sees but thinking what no one else thinks. If this story blew your mind, smash that like button and subscribe for more reverse histories. Drop a comment telling me which everyday invention should I unravel next. Maybe it's something you're using right now without knowing its bizarre origin story. Thanks for watching Hidden Chapters, where we don't just tell history, we reverse it. See you in the next chapter.